Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you joining us from different parts of the world. Welcome to the webinar on European Research Council grants for top researchers from anywhere in the world, brought to you by EURAXESS Australia and New Zealand and the European Research Council. Please allow me to introduce to you our esteemed guest speakers for today. We have with us three scientific officers from the ERC, Dr. Catherine Balleriaux, Dr. Davide Innocenti, and Dr. Carlos Galvez. We also have with us Dr. Jane Reznick, who is an ERC grantee and principal investigator currently working as a team leader at the CECAD Research Center at the University Hospital Cologne. Thank you all of you for joining us so early from Europe. I am Innocenti, Regional Coordinator for EURAXESS Australia and New Zealand. For those who have joined our webinar for the very first time, EURAXESS is an initiative of the European Commission that addresses barriers to the mobility of researchers and seeks to enhance scientific collaboration between Europe and rest of the world. We provide free information about European research, career opportunities, international collaboration, and networking possibilities. Since all of you are watching this on your laptop or phone, I will encourage you to type EURAXESS Australia and New Zealand on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and follow us there. I'd also encourage all of you to please use the Q&A function in the interface to ask any questions that you might have while our speakers are presenting. Once the presentation is done, we will come back to take your questions. Please note that the recording and slides of the session will be provided to you. However, the recording will not include the Q&A, and hence I will recommend you to stay for the entire duration of the session if you want our experts to address the common queries that applicants have. Okay, now let's move on to the actual session itself, and allow me to introduce to you Dr. Catherine Balleriaux, who is going to explain to you about what ERC is all about, what sort of grants are there. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you. I will share my screen. So I'm just going to give you a brief introduction on the ERC, our funding programs, and the application process. So the ERC is part of Horizon Europe, which is the European Research and Innovation Program that is running now from 2021 to 2027. Our budget is 16 billion euros, and this represents 17% of the entire Horizon Europe budget. The ERC is led by the Scientific Council, which is composed of 22 prominent researchers appointed by the Commission. The Scientific Council establishes the overall scientific strategy of the European Research Council, controls the quality of operations and management, and ensures communication with the scientific community. The Scientific Council also appoints the panel members who will evaluate the proposals. The panel members have full independence in this evaluation, and they also appoint the remote referees, so the external experts who will evaluate the proposals at step 2. I will explain all that later. The ERC is also composed of, sorry, I have lost a slide. Anyway, it's okay. So there's also the executive agency. So we implement the evaluation, and we follow up on successful projects. So what the ERC offers is it offers individual researchers from all over the world long-term grants, 5 years, and funds high-risk, high-gain pioneering projects in any field of frontier research. So in the life sciences, in physical sciences and engineering, and in the social sciences and humanities. The ERC offers creative freedom for individual grantees. We offer generous grants that provide you with independence, recognition, and visibility. You can work on any research topic. It's a completely bottom-up approach with a team of your own choice. You gain financial autonomy for up to 5 years. Your host institution can be in any EU member state or associated country. The grants are portable, which means that you can negotiate the best working conditions with the host institution. You can attract top team members and collaborators from worldwide, and you can also attract additional funding and gain recognition because the ERC has a very good reputation. The different funding schemes you have, so starting grants, those grants are up to 1.5 million euros plus up to 1 million euro. I will explain that later. For over 5 years. You are expected to have 2 to 7 years of experience since the completion of the PhD. For consolidated grants, those grants are up to 2 million euros for up to 5 years as well. And you are expected to have 7 to 12 years of experience since completion of the PhD in order to apply. For advanced grants, those grants are up to 2.5 million euros, also for 5 years, and you are expected to have an excellent scientific track record of recognized achievements in the last 10 years. We also have synergy grants. Those grants are up to 10 million euros and they last up to 6 years. And the particularity of the synergy grants are that the team is composed of 2 to 4 researchers and their research groups. And one of those researchers can be based outside of the EU or associated countries. And then finally, the proof of concept grant, it's a grant of up to 150,000 euros. And those grants are awarded to people who already received an ERC grant and whose proposal, whose project has an innovation potential and significant economic or social benefits. Just to elaborate a little bit on the synergy grants. So those grants are for groups of 2 to maximum 4 principal investigators. And so those principal investigators work together and bring different skills and resources to tackle very ambitious research problems. There are no specific eligibility criteria regarding your academic training. So it means you can present either an early achievement track record or a 10-year track record, whichever is most appropriate. And the proposal will be also, as any proposal in this grant scheme, will be evaluated on the sole criterion of scientific excellence, with the additional meaning in the case of synergy grants of outstanding intrinsic synergetic effects. So very big multidisciplinary proposals. So the additional funding that I mentioned that can be requested, the up to 1 million euros for starting, consolidator and advanced grants, and the up to 4 million euros for synergy grants are startup costs for principal investigators moving to the EU from elsewhere in the world, purchase of major equipment, access to large facilities, and other major experimental and fieldwork costs. So this means that this is a good opportunity from researchers who are not from the European research area. The startup funding can be used to relocate to Europe. The grantees can keep their affiliation with their home institution outside of Europe. You have to have a significant part of work within Europe, which is at least 50%. Your team members can be based outside of Europe, and of course you can move within Europe with the grant for 5 years. Just to share with you a few statistics about the calls and the participation of Australia and New Zealand in those calls. You can see this is the total of evaluated proposals, so a grand total so far of 416 proposals from Australian principal investigators, with a success of 60 proposals successful. You can see that the majority are from Australian PIs who are already located in Europe, but as I explained, there are great opportunities for also relocating or sharing your time between Europe and your home country. For New Zealand, a grand total of 122 applications with 23 successful projects. So this is the calendar for 2022, the starting grants. So they're just opening now, and the submission deadline is in January. For consolidated grants, the deadline for application is in March. For advanced grants, it's in April, and for synergy, it's actually very, very close now. It's in November 2021. So the calls are published every year, and you can find all the dates on our website. So this is the panel structure of our calls. You can see that you have 3 domains: life sciences, social sciences and humanities, and physical sciences and engineering. Those do not predetermine the nature of the proposals. You can apply with very multidisciplinary proposals. This panel structures is to help us find the panel most appropriate to evaluate your proposal, to find the right experts to evaluate your proposal. So how are the proposals evaluated? So you have a single submission, which is relatively simple, but a 2-step evaluation. So at step 1, the first part of your application, part B1, which is a 5-page synopsis and a CV, is assessed remotely by the panel members. Then they have a panel meeting where they discuss the proposals and reach an agreement. You have proposals that are rejected, which get a B or a C mark, and proposals retained for step 2, which get an A score. And then you get some feedback, meaning you receive all the reviews, all the individual reviews, and the panel comments on your proposal, and what they thought was good and what they thought was problematic. At step 2, the panel evaluates the full proposal, so parts B1 and B2, and I will explain what those parts are. Then again, we have a panel meeting with interviews. So you have a chance to present and defend your proposals to the panel. And then you have a ranked list with scores A and B, and you get some feedback. So the structure of the application, you have the part A, which is just general information about your host institution, your budget, and ethical review. Then the part B1 is a synopsis of your project of 5-page, which is meant to be for generalists. Then a brief methodology and feasibility. So it's just really a broad overview of your proposal with a CV and a track record. And then the part B2, which is much more specialized, much more detailed, which is 15-page and is supposed to include an extensive methodology and a work plan. And also discuss risks mitigation, open access costs, your team, and so on. And then just a pro forma host institution letter of support. So contrary to what you may think, the ERC funds frontier research, including applied research. The budget is distributed among the scientific panels as a function of demand. The panel descriptors do not represent ERC scientific priorities. As I explained, those descriptors are here to help us select the appropriate panel to evaluate your proposal. The success rate is virtually flat across the eligibility window for starting and consolidator. The publication record is not decisive in selection decisions, and the host institution is not an evaluation criterion. The sole evaluation criterion is excellence, which means we really are looking for proposals that are at the frontier of science, that are, for example, multi or interdisciplinary, that cross boundaries between different fields of research, that are addressing new and emerging fields of research, or that introduce unconventional, innovative approaches and methodologies. Yes, so what really the basic criteria are for the research project are the groundbreaking nature, the potential impact, and of course the validity of the scientific approach and the feasibility. And in terms of the principal investigator, the panel members are asked to look at the intellectual capacity, the creativity, and the commitment. So how to prepare a successful ERC proposal? Of course, you should have a bright original idea. You should design a research project to implement this idea. You should get a letter of support from a host institution where you intend to carry out the project. You should make sure you are eligible, and all that information is very easily available on our website. You should register early and get familiar with the system. It's a fully online application system, and it's relatively easy, but still it's important to know what is expected of you, of course, before you apply. You should consider the balance between addressing generalists in your 5-page part B1 and specialists in your 15-page part B2. You should seek feedback. And of course, if you move on to step 2, you should organize mock interviews and make sure you're ready to defend your proposal in front of the panel. And if rejected, keep trying, because reapplications have a much higher success rate. And also the feedback from the panel that you will get if you're rejected would be a valuable tool to refine and make your proposal better. So what are the panel members looking for in your proposal? They're looking for, of course, they're going to ask themselves if your project goes substantially beyond the state of the art. Why is your project important? Is it timely? Is it feasible? And what is the risk? Is the high risk justified by a substantial potential gain? Is there mitigating measures in case of problems, and so on? And of course, we intend to fund the future leaders in the field. So why are you the best person to carry out this project? Is the PI internationally competitive at your career stage? So it's very important that we always take into account your career stage. And is there evidence that you will be able to work independently and manage a project with a substantial budget? Just some rumors about the ERC. You can only apply for an ERC grant if you are a highly accomplished scientist. It's not true. Accomplishments are always evaluated in relation to your stage, to your career stage. Your seniority is based on evidence of your capacity to conduct the research and your creativity. The second rumor, to be successful, you need to continue on an established research line to prove continuity and credibility. It's actually not true. Generally, the opposite is true. We're really looking for groundbreaking projects. So this is important to have, a bright new idea. The third rumor, if you have already obtained an ERC grant, you are less or more likely to get another one. It's not true. The panels look at each proposal on its own merits in comparison with the other applications, irrespectively of whether you have or have not obtained an ERC grant in the past. And the fourth rumor, the more socially or medically relevant a grant proposal is, the higher the chances of it getting funded. It's not true. The goal, again, of the ERC, and this is one of our really strong specificities, is to fund frontier research. So not research that promises to be only an incremental advancement of knowledge. So this is irrespective of the field and whether it has societal, medical, or clinical applications. So you can find more information on our website. You have those, for example, those videos, those ERC classes that are really, really useful and that have been made by scientific officers, and they tell you what to consider before applying, how to fill in the application forms, what to expect for the interview, and give you general information about how the evaluation works. You can find them on YouTube and also on our website. I really suggest strongly that you go to our website, because you have really a lot of information, including a database of all the funded proposals. So it will give you an idea of what proposals are, highly sought after, what type of research is being funded, and so on and so forth. You can also, of course, contact your national contact points or go on the Funding and Tender Opportunities website. And I think that's it for me for now. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I think there were a lot of very relevant and interesting points, and I can see there is quite a lot of very good questions that is coming along as well. We will be able to take these questions after Jane presents her slides. So without further ado, please allow me to welcome Dr. Jane Reznick, who is a successful ERC grantee, and she will be sharing her experience of receiving an ERC grant. Over to you, Jane.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm happy to share my experience with you of getting the ERC starting grant. So my grant was titled MetaMold, Naked Mole Rats to Mice, Metabolic Reprogramming to Prevent Ischemic Injury. And the way that I got there is, well, why did I decide to write an ERC grant? It was basically after when I was finishing my postdoc, and I have to say that I was doing a postdoc already in Germany. I wanted to continue my research further and to become independent and basically start my own group. And that was either by getting a faculty position, but the other sort of route that I decided to look into is to basically get an ERC grant. And with this grant, then, well, first of all, it gives you the money to start a lab in itself, but also it makes you more competitive to then get a faculty position. So then you have the faculty position with the package, and you have the ERC grant on top of that, which would make you extremely competitive to do the research that you want to do. And so how did I go about doing this? Well, I searched for institutes that, you know, I would want to do my research in, and institutes that are relevant and have the proper infrastructure and the expertise. I identified one of them, and I contacted the directors of this institute and basically circulated my CV to the directors and asked them if they were interested basically to host me if I get the ERC grant. And they were interested in this. You know, it was a big step for me to do this because it was just out of the blue. I contacted them, but they were all enthusiastic about it, and they invited me to come and give a presentation to show what my research had been about in the past, and also to discuss my proposal as well as some ideas and what I want to sort of do in the future. And they all agreed that this would fit well into their institute, and if I would get the ERC grant, then I could have a lab in the institute. And so then I wrote the grant, and because they were sort of on board and they supported me a lot, so the director supported me by sort of, you know, giving me feedback on my proposal, but also this particular institute had a grant officer who has experience in sort of supporting people like me in writing grants, and he was extremely helpful with sort of navigating me through the whole process, which I think sometimes is a little bit daunting because there's all these different sections and all these different rules, and I basically spent a lot of time on the telephone with him, and he was guiding me through it. And so my big idea, so it's all about these high risk ideas and that excite the panelists and so on. What I'm doing is I basically research this animal called the naked mole rat, which lives in very extreme environments and has a very long life, so over 36 years, which is a lot longer than you would expect an animal of this size to live. And it has gained adaptations, so basically evolved adaptations towards its very extreme environments, which is like low food, low oxygen, high CO2, and so on. But because it evolved these adaptations, it also basically accidentally started to live for a long time just because it can like cope with all these stresses. And so what I want to do is try to understand all these adaptations and identify them in order to then carry them over to humans to treat diseases like heart disease. So how did I go about preparing the proposal? So and what I can sort of give you hints about. So I think what you need, first of all, is a confidence and a commitment to write the grant. So once you're doing it, just commit yourself to it and be confident that your idea is a good idea, and then work with this idea to basically optimize it. I would suggest to try to get your hands on successful ESC grants. So sometimes this is difficult to do because obviously they're confidential, but if you can do that, it gives you basically some guidelines, more how to structure these things. So I was lucky enough to, my PI had an ESC grant, like an advanced one, and I basically, because I was working on this grant, I also read it, and so I got to understand sort of how to, well, there's lots of ways to do it, but how a successful grant actually looks like, and I think this helped a lot as well. And also, if you can, to find sort of a go-to mentor or support. So, I had someone from the grant office, or a previously successful applicant. I now sort of am helping a lot of people here that are applying at the moment, and I think they find it useful to ask me questions, because there are a lot of sort of small points that sometimes you're not sure about, and it's nice to have someone to sort of go to. So if you can find such a person, that's extremely helpful. And give yourself plenty of time. So I gave myself about a month of pure writing this proposal. I didn't do any lab work. I didn't do anything else except for sit at home. I didn't even go into work. I just sat at home and wrote this proposal. So how do you write the proposal? So I would suggest to first draw up a structure of the proposal. So like the big ideas and so on. I think what you want to do is make a big splash with the beginning of your proposal so that you get the reviewer excited. And so how you could do this is, start with the big idea, the problem or the gap in the knowledge, and why you are the right person to address this. I think this is important. And examples of this could be, you could have preliminary data, but I think this is not essential. If you don't have any, I think you can still get a ESC grant, or you might be have a special technique that or you're bridging interdisciplinary expertise, or there's all these other reasons why you are the person to address this big problem and explain why this is such a big problem. And this is all to get the reviewer excited, because you want them to continue to read the rest of your proposal in a sort of hungry manner to see what's coming next. Then by structuring your proposal, I meant sort of to break it down into parts, because you just don't want to write a whole sort of just one long 5-pager. You want to break it up so that the reviewer can orient themselves. And so I, for example, had 3 main objectives that I broke it down into like these bite-sized pieces. I think it's important to use formatting to highlight important points. So you can, italicize some things, you can put things in bold, so that, if the reviewer has sort of lost track, they would be sort of woken up again, and you highlight the very important points. Come up with contingency plans. I think this was given to me as a hint, and I think I used that, and it was very important also down the road during the interview, because they do actually question you on what if it doesn't work, and so you have to have a fairly solid alternative plan sort of thing. So for every objective, for example, I wrote a small paragraph, like 3 sentences or so, about why it potentially could not work and what I would do if it doesn't. And I always included basically a summary sentence to highlight why this is groundbreaking, why this is important, and what I will get out of this. And I put that in bold. I think the most important thing is to make your proposal, it should be very well written, and the ideas should be clear. And this is the #1 thing. I think it's very important. And to do that, I put my proposal through a lot of eyes and got a lot of feedback, and sort of asked people that I know that, were not shy to sort of give critical feedback. And I think that was extremely useful. And so at the end, I did get a comment that my proposal was very well written, but I think it wasn't all me. It was basically the help of the people that I asked for feedback, because they're seeing this proposal unbiased for the first time, and then they can really identify what makes or doesn't make sense. And I would say there's a section where you have to write about your track record and early achievements, and don't be shy about it. Explain everything, what you have achieved in your previous career, and why that sort of sets you up to be successful in then carrying out your ERC project. And so once you get to the interview, my sort of suggestion would be to make the presentation very clear and very crisp, and don't get lost in details. You just give the sort of the big idea behind it, and don't get stuck with figures or small details and so on. I think the panelists don't want to hear this at this point. They want to sort of get out the sort of the overarching aims of your ERC project. Yeah, exactly. So make them understand the big idea behind your proposal. Do a lot of mock interviews. I did several with different kind of people. So I did a few with successful starting grantees. I also got some with more senior staff, also people that have been sort of that review the ERC, even family and friends. For some of these people were able to give me feedback in terms of, does this make sense? Address this scientific thing. But some people that don't actually understand the science were still helpful, because first of all, I was practicing how I'm talking, and I was getting familiar with my presentation, but also they were sort of like telling me about my body language and how I was talking and so on. The grant officer that was helping me even got me voice training. I mean, I don't know if this is very important, but it was fun, I have to say. But what it sort of gave me is, particularly I practiced the very beginning of the presentation, which not only got the reviewers excited about it because I like opened up well, but also it got me into like this confident, comfortable state to continue giving the presentation. And then, of course, reread your proposal and know it inside out. This is because there's quite a bit of time between you handing in your proposal and the interview. And of course, during question time, you can be asked about any of it. So, you should really know it. And you do know it. It's just that, you should just refresh what exactly the fine points that you made in it. And if you know of any weakness in your proposal, know how to address it beforehand, because you don't want to be sort of stumped while you're sort of nervous at the interview when the panelists identify some of the weaknesses. And because most of them are experts in the field, they are likely to identify some of these weaknesses. And most importantly, on the day, have fun and be excited, because it is your talk and it's your ideas, and you get to talk about them to these experts in the field. So that's extremely excited, and use this opportunity and have fun. And finally, I wish you all good luck, and hopefully this was helpful.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane, for a very clear presentation and also very informative. I thought you painted the picture very well. And I'm sure that you got already a lot of people excited about putting forward a proposal for the ERC. And we will now move on to our last presentation for today. And please allow me to introduce to you Davide Innocenti, who is also an ERC scientific officer, and he will be explaining about the implementing arrangement between Australia and the Commission and the ERC. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Nishant. I will share my slides with you. Okay, so good morning, and good morning from Brussels, but especially good afternoon and good evening for most of you. I would like to thank the EURAXESS colleagues for the chance to present this European Research Council program, fostering international participation. But of all you that join us numerous today and are still connected so late. it is with great pleasure that I will present you the ERC implementing arrangement, and which are actually an opportunity to join the an ERC team. Okay. Implementing arrangements are international agreements promoting opportunities for teams, for scientists supported by third countries, funding agencies, to temporarily join a research team run by an European Research Council principal investigator. 16 implementing arrangements have been signed with funding agencies from 12 different countries so far. New agreements are signed every year. And in particular, on 2020, Japan Agency for Medical Research and the Indian Council of Social Science Research joined the program. More than 450 international researchers visited an ERC project since 2012. Every year, ERC Executive Agency launch an internal call for expression of interest to ask ERC PIs for their ability to temporarily host international researcher. Next call will be launched for expression of interest will be launched on November 2021. This will be, of course, for ERC PIs, which will be in case they will actually respond to our call. They will, in case they will be willing to host anybody. So this is the list of the 16 third countries funding bodies already participating to the program. All the implementing arrangements that have been signed so far by European Commission and the relative country research institution and ministries are available on the ERC Additional Opportunities webpage, of course. But in particular, for your interest, 2 agreements have been signed with Australia funding bodies since 2018. One with the National Health and Medical Research Council, and the other one with the Australian Research Council. But how does it work? I would like to share with you what are the procedure and what is the timeline, and which is actually represented all the process. Every year we launch an internal call for expression of interest, contacting all the eligible ERC PIs, and ERC PIs has 1 month then to express their interest to participate. After the call is closed, we send the list of interested PIs to the third country funding agencies. At this stage, the ball is within the third country-based funding agencies and the researchers, of course. The agencies launch their own internal calls for, with different modalities. They will inform all the eligible researchers that as applicant have to contact an ERC PIs, and really it's up to the researcher to find and seek an agreement for a possible visit. At this stage, the ERC PIs have the chance to accept or not the research visit. If accepted, the PIs and the host institution will provide a letter of support. Third country-based funding agencies then will evaluate the proposal and eventually funds the successful one. Finally, the visiting scientist will plan and execute the research visit, of course, in agreement with the ERC principal investigator. Yeah. So there are few participation process and conditions which are actually common to all the agreements, to all the 16 agreements, of course. And I can actually quickly show you this. First of all, the ERC does not intervene in the communication between the ERC PIs and the potential visitor. And as well, the ERC is actually not intervening in the selection process. Of course, the visit should take place within the time life of the ERC project, and it's expected that collaboration will occur in similar areas of research. That's why it's important for the researcher to find an agreement with the PI in terms of what the project should be and what are the model interests involved. Of course, the visiting researcher may be incorporated in the research team of the ERCPI for the duration of the visit. But I just presented you the general structure and the process and the main condition of the program. Now I can quickly update you about the state of play of the program and to let you understand how this program is actually received by the ERCPIs. So in 2012, when United States were the first National Science Foundation signed the first arrangement, hundreds of ERCPIs immediately welcomed the program. Since then, thousands of them actually expressed their interest to host researchers funded by third countries, funding bodies, of course. And these numbers grow in the last year, exceeding an average of 600 participation in 2020. This means that the program is concretely providing to researchers funded by third countries research institution an opportunity to pursue a research collaboration with top scientists, funded by ERC, of course. But how this translates in terms of accomplished research visits? Since 2012, almost 500 scientists already visited ERCPIs, temporarily joined the ERC team, on single long-term visits or multiple short-term visits, summing up to a maximum of 12 months. There is a minimum number of months, which is 2 months, but this is really depending by agreement. The number of visits grow a lot from 2012 to 2018. We touch our maximum of 100. Then, of course, in the last year, I've been affected a lot by the pandemic's mobilities constraint, but it's encouraging to see that still in the last year, for example, for the 2019 call, our 2019 call for expression of interest, we had in any case 60 visits that have been accomplished in 2020 and also in 2021, because as you can imagine, it will take a while after the launch of the call for expression of interest, then to program, select the visitors, and then launch the visits. So in conclusion, a vast and comprehensive collaborative offer has been translated in practical terms in hundreds of research collaboration and involved hundreds of top researchers of every level of experience in Europe and across the world, of course, and in many different domains. So I will leave you mentioning that again, that the next implementing arrangement internal call will be launched in November. This will be for ERCPI to express their interest to participate. And meanwhile, we will provide you support and information if you're interested to this exciting opportunity of scientific collaboration. Thank you very much for your attention.
Please join me in thanking our speakers for today, Catherine, Jane, David, Carlos. I'm sure our audience got a lot of useful insights from all of you. And we are very optimistic that there will be an increased number of applications from the region in 2022. To wrap up, please allow me to reiterate to keep an eye on our social media platforms to get notified of such informative webinars in the near future. With that, we come to an end of today's session and signing off for today and wishing you a good week ahead. Thank you very much. Thank to all our speakers and all the audience as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.